just to introduce to Sir what we did in the morning session, we had topic 1 on introduction to learning outcomes and recent developments in evaluation. And then in session 2, we had learned about the competencies and performance indicators of evaluation. Now we move on to with our third session, that is on mapping course outcomes, program outcomes to evaluation patterns. For session 3, it's our privilege and honor to have Dr. Pankaj Kumar Mishra with us. He'll be taking up the session 3 to introduce about Sir. He is the Pro Vice Chancellor of local university. Sir is also an established academician, administrator, and innovator, having over 2 decades of administrative and teaching experience in conventional, blended, and virtual environments. He's a leader in the learner-centric, outcome-based education for the 21st century learners with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. He has handled almost every function in HEI and university, right from a mathematics faculty to course coordinator, first year in charge, HBO coordinator, department head, Dean Sciences, Dean Academic Affairs, Director IQSE, and now the Pro Vice Chancellor. He is an evangelist and an independent advisor to higher education industry for the implementation of new education policy, outcome-based education, process automation through ERP and LMS solution. Sir, once again, we invite you for joining with us. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
And I'm unable to see my lovely audience. Can you? Yeah, now it's fine. Right. I do understand the post-lunch sessions are really very boring, and especially if the terms are there with the outcome-based education, lots of works need to do. So I could understand the emotions and the idea of the pupil, but believe me, I will try to enjoy this session. Number one, because it's a kind of COVID situation, you have to just be with me directly in the hall projections, and we'll discuss some topics related to the outcomes and the programs, course outcomes, how to connect with the assessment methodologies and all. And I believe that my previous speakers, Dean Academics and Honorable Vice Chancellor, has already apprised you about the various recent changes and trends in the higher education for the evaluation purpose and all. And also the Dean Academics has discussed about the competencies and performance on the evaluation patterns. I'll quickly start with the program outcomes, and then we'll move a little bit with the process and little bit knowledge about the blooms as well. So with this, I'm just starting my presentation. The topic given to me is the mapping of program outcomes and course outcomes to evaluation parameters. And for that, we'll start from the very important and very basic thing, that is what is program outcomes. So we all know that everybody knows that program outcomes are nothing but the statements describes what students are expected to know and be able to do upon graduating from the program. And this relates to the skill, knowledge, attitude, and behavior that students acquire through the program. So entire program, maybe it's a 3-year program, maybe it's a 4-year program, depending upon maybe the new education policy has suggested for the 5 years integrated program or 4-year undergraduate, any program, it should have some outcome, it should have some things. Earlier, if we talk about the outcome-based education, only one thing is important. That is, earlier we all teacher, as the speaker has introduced me, that I have handled all function ranging from faculty member to Pro Vice Chancellor now. So I have seen as a faculty also basically we were bothering about the teaching. This topic I need to teach and I need to deliver, that's all. Now the pedagogy and the terms has been changed. We need to work with the pedagogy, which becomes the andragogy after some time, and now it's a heutagogy, where the students are more towards the self-learning. So we need to cater with the challenges of G generation also. So there, we need to change, not the students. The students are already changed. we all understand that our kids are also more good in operating mobile phones and laptops than us, right? So we need to change from ourselves from teaching pedagogy, that is what only teaching and mugging up to the class before the class and just delivering something in the class, to learning methodology. That means we are now focused about more about the learning. So program outcomes need to be defined very well. And POs are the statement about the knowledge, skills, and attitude the graduate of a formal engineering programs should have. Then profile of graduates reached through POs, that is what a target. And POs are defined by accreditation agencies most of the time for the engineering management and all. And defining this is the starting point of outcome-based education. If we talk about the engineering programs, the 12 numbers of POs have already been defined. Need not to worry on that, that I'm going to read line by line and I'm just boring you by reading it. But just you all understand that if it is an engineering program, 12 numbers of POs are there, ranging from engineering knowledge, problem analysis, design, development of solution, conduct, investigation of complex problems, modern tool uses, the engineer and society, environment and sustainability, ethics, individual and teamwork, communication, project management and finance, and then lifelong learning are the 12 set POs given by a National Board of Accreditations for the graduate of the engineering student. Now, if it is clear to us that if POs are clear, that means POs are set guidelines for any engineering college, and this is nothing but a kind of, we all have seen and witnessed that number of mushrooming of engineering colleges, then mushrooming of universities are also there. So kind of standard setting work has done by National Board of Accreditation, and they have given that this 12 POs needs to be achieved, needs to be attained by each and every institutions. Now, program specific outcomes, if we talk, so PSOs are again the second level after the defining the PO. PSOs are more specific in the nature, where PSOs are a statement that describe what students are expected to know and be able to do in a specified areas of discipline upon graduation from a program. For example, if it is a electrical engineering program, then it is more specific to the electrical engineering domain. For example, it's a more specific civil engineering program or computer science engineering. And again, if we talk about the computer science engineering, it's not sufficient to say, because computer science engineering also involve many other sub branches. So program may specify 2 to 4 program specific outcomes if required. And then these are the statements which are specific to the particular program. They are beyond POs, program curriculums, and other activities during the program must help in the achievement of PSOs along with POs. So these are the various ideas to define how to define the PSOs. Just for an example, if I'm talking about the civil engineering, so civil engineering says that we have the program like we have already defined the PSOs, but if we talk about the PSOs of civil engineering, so the student should be able to analyze and design building structure system, then able to provide design solutions to water supply and sewage system. This is the PSO number 2. And then PSO number 3 is able to identify and analyze transportation and engineering problem and provide solutions for the benefit of society. So this was sample number 1 for the specific to the civil engineering program. Not this one, right? So similarly, now we are starting the topic given to me, that how we'll align or define this, program outcomes and course outcomes to the evaluation pattern. So I'm going to apprise you. This is again not my content. It is already available with the AICT and MHRDs. The two-step process of bringing clarity to the POs are very important. Right now, as a teacher, when I was designing the COs and mapping of the POs, it was a kind of jumble kind of job. You choose one CO and define a tick 1 2 3 to write 1 2 3 again. Some POs so are not, some POs are aligned, some POs are mapped, some POs are not mapped. Even there was not much clarity that how many POs to be defined, whether it is relevant, whether it's not relevant. So many things were there. And connecting this CO, because PO can be attained through the COs only. So COs are the basically a backbone. So if we define, and the mapping, it should be very clear. So POs are very important terms, and basically a high level generic goals that are not directly measurable. So how will define? So the guidelines has been given by ACT that real observability and measurability of the POs are very, very difficult. So to connect the high level learning of the, that is POs, with the course content, why don't we have a two-step of bringing clarity to the POs? Two-step means what? Number one, for respective POs. Guys, if it is audible to you all, if you remember, we have 12 numbers of POs for engineering, right? So each POs, if we are able to identify and define the competency, number one, we need to define the competency, and number two, we need to define the performance indicator. So if we are able to do it, and again, don't mind that again, many our jobs will be increased, and many things are going on, so it's not like that. So what I'm saying is that initially we will define the competency and the performance indicator for each PO, right? Whatever the POs we have. I have the list. I'll give you an example also. I'm good in example, setting examples also. So again, your work will be little bit strengthened, and again it is increasing in nutshell, but to try to understand, it will be more fantastic and more easy to understand the process and defining the and finding out the attainment, So moving to the next one, the idea is what? Suppose we have 12 number of POs. So each PO will be defined, with some competencies to be attained. So CA, that means competency to be attained. And then, as I'm saying that, suppose we have 12 numbers of POs, so each POs will be defined like this. And then, first of all, we are defining the competencies, then we'll define the performance indicator. And then we will set or map with the assessment methodology. Maybe it's a kind of continuous kind of improvement, and then continuous improvement, then semester end examination or continuous evaluation examination, or likewise. So for example, we have a program number 1, right? So a program outcome, that is, this is PO number 1. So we are defining PO number 1 with the competency 1, competency 2, competency 3. So let's name them 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. That means if it is, we name the PO 1.1, right? Then PI stand for performance indicator. So performance indicator 1, 2, 3 for respective competencies. So this is what basically 1.1.1 for PO number 1. So likewise, we have defined for example, for competency number 2, we have 1.2. That means we have 2 POs. Similarly, for the competency number 1.3, we have 3 performance indicators likewise. So moving to the direct example on it. I have ready a chart available for all the POs of engineering. So here I'm just giving example for the mechanical engineering program, where you can see that we have one PO named as what? Named as engineering knowledge. So suppose I have a CO1, and earlier I was just putting it with the PO1 or PO2 or something. That's the mapping. But to understand, and getting more clarity is very important. So for that, you can see that competencies has been defined. So this is what 1.1 engineering knowledge. That means knowledge can be again, sub levels, demonstrate competence in mathematical modeling. And if some genius has asked what is engineering, so engineering is nothing but engineering is nothing but knowledge of mathematics. So mathematical modeling is required. Then this is what a competency, that means mathematical modeling competency should be there with the student. Then again, what are the indicators for that? So indicators are, you can see that apply mathematical techniques such as calculus, then algebra, and other branches to solve the problem. Then similarly, competency number 1.1 have another performance indicator as apply advanced mathematical techniques to model and solve mechanical engineering problems. So these are the 2 performance indicator for the competency number 1.1. Similarly, demonstrate competencies in basic sciences. So 1.2.1 says that apply law of nature, natural science to an engineering problem and all. And likewise, you can understand the next competencies for the PO1 is demonstrate competence in engineering fundamentals. So it will again lead the 1.3.1, where applying fundamentals engineering concepts to solve engineering problems. And lastly, the fourth number competency, you can see that demonstrate competencies in specialized engineering knowledge to the program and apply mechanical engineering concepts to solve engineering problems could be the indicator. So likewise, we could proceed, and we can say that the PO1, which was earlier, you are just mapping CO1 with PO1, and that too you are writing 1, 2, 3 randomly. That means that there is no logic, or some of the time we are just putting it. As a faculty, I do understand, yeah, management is giving you many jobs, many things you need to manage. NAC is there, OB is there, and ultimately, the final end to execute nothing, anything is the faculty member. So they are really bothered that how to manage this and do it. And most of the time, this kind of workshop will be, game changer also. But some of the time we are also not in that mood to attend the workshop. So and that kind of many things are there. That means lack of training, lack of interest, and many other things are there, which leads to incomplete or insufficient knowledge to map and all. But now if you understand the competencies and performance indicator wise understanding on it, you'll be easily to map your COs with any course you are teaching. It's not only for the engineering, it could work with the humanities, it could work with the life sciences and everywhere, right? So moving to the next program outcomes, we'll discuss and just go through it. I'm not going to read all 12 numbers of POs and its competencies only in this workshop. And yeah, so moving to this one, you can see that PO number 2 for the engineering is defined as a problem analysis, which has the subwords like identify, formulate, research literature, and analyze complex engineering problems, reaching substantive conclusion using first principles of mathematics, natural sciences, and engineering sciences. So now you can see that the competencies has been defined as 2.1, demonstrate an ability to identify and formulate complex engineering problems. Second competencies is demonstrate an ability to formulate a solution plan and methodology for an engineering problem. Third one is the demonstrate an ability to formulate and interpret a model. And lastly, that means 2.4 for this PO2 is demonstrate an ability to execute a solution, process, and analyze result. So this is what our competencies we have defined. So competencies, once we are able to define, we will define now the sub bullets of each competencies as the performance indicator. So if the students are able to articulate the problem statements and identify objectives, then this PO could be mapped. Then identify engineering systems, variables, and parameters to solve the problem. Then identify the mathematical engineering and other relevant knowledge that applies to a given problem can be again done. Similarly, for the demonstrate an ability to formulate a solution, that is competency 2.2, can be having the performance indicators as 2.2.1 as reframe complex problems into interconnected sub problems. Then identify existing processes, solutions, methods for solving with the problems, including forming justified approximation and assumption could be 2.2.3. And likewise, I'm not going to read line by line and bore you guys up, especially during the post-lunch session. I do understand the psychology of our all faculty members. So just to apprise you, because you all are a kind of jam one, and my task to become just to apply you and apprise you so that you can do better, right? You all are having tremendous powers, tremendous knowledge. I'm just doing the job of jam one, so that to recall you that whatever the powers you have. Moving to the next one, so we have the PO3. So design, design and development of solutions has this many performance indicators and competencies, right? Similarly, for the PO4, you can see that 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 are the different competencies we define. So what we are doing now, we are basically that means the task given to me, is what mapping of COs and POs to the evaluation pattern. And before mapping of this COs to the POs, we must understand that what are the POs, what are its competencies, what are its indicators, how to define the performance indicator, and how then if it is clear to you, it will be very easy to map your CO with the PO. We will also discuss after some time that how to define the COs, what are the 4 different parameters to defining any COs. We'll discuss that thing soon after this discussion, and then we'll go for some basics knowledge of the Blooms and all, and then we'll have some practical demonstration also. So moving to the next one, PO5 is again having, you can see that 3 competencies, and each competencies has 2 performance indicator, and similarly PO6 has another 6.1 and 6.2 as a competencies, and only 1 performance indicator. So there is no particular set rule that you need to define only 1 PI or performance indicator, or 3 PIs or 2 PIs. It's all basically your understanding, but PIs needs to be mapped with the question paper also. I'll show you how to map with the question paper. I have requested for the sample question paper, and I'm just putting it over there on the screen soon after this discussion. So similarly, you can see that next task is to discuss about the PO7 has again PO7 has 2 competencies and 4 performance indicator in total. Each competencies has 2 performance indicator. Similarly, for the PO8, which is ethics, so demonstrate an ability to recognize ethical dilemmas, identify situations and unethical professional conduct and process ethical alternatives, proposes alternatives, ethical alternatives. If the students are able to do this kind of things, that this is what a kind of performance indicator. So that we need to understand that how to define PIs and competencies. So these are the various 12 numbers of POs and then respective performance indicator. I'll request organizers and technical team to share this presentation as well after completion of this task, so that they could have some written document as well. Now moving to the next one is what course outcome, which is the basic backbone of this entire outcome based education. If you are not able to successfully define the course outcome, if you are not able to write down the course outcome, entire philosophy of this outcome based education will be failed. So very seriously, I'm taking this one. That is, what are the course outcomes? So you can see that course outcomes are nothing but the statement of observable student action as evidence of 3 pillars of OBs was knowledge, skill, and attitudes, right? And that could be reflected everywhere, whatever the course is, doesn't matter. So each course is designed to meet the course outcome. And the course outcome, again, there are lots of discussion. Some people are saying if it is a 2 credit course, only 2 course outcomes should define. Some people are saying no, 3 is also okay. Some people are saying no, 6 should be there, at least 6 should be there, right? Some people are saying it depends upon how many credit the course is. If it is 1 credit, 2 is sufficient. If it is 4 credit, 7 is also okay. If it is 5 credit, so need not confuse with that. Number of course outcomes, if you are extending up to 10, extending up to 7, 6, it doesn't matter. Some of the time people are doing, suppose for a module particular program, let's say mathematics or any program, people are writing like unit number 1, unit number 2, unit number 3, unit number 4. For example, if you have a module to deliver, there are only 4 numbers of units are there. So some people are writing each CO1 for unit number 1, CO2 for unit number 2, CO3 for unit number 3, and CO4 for unit number 4. So that is also acceptable at some beginning level, I could say. And after some time, this entire outcome based education needs a kind of a cycling process. So define it, attain it, and after some time you again redefine it. So likewise, the process is continuous, it's all kind of cycling process. So recycle is there. So again, if you find the difficulty, you can define more COs. So it doesn't matter. And there's no thumb rule, no set formula that the writing CO is having relation with the number of credits of that respective course, right? So please be aware with this kind of myths. As a faculty member, I also have that kind of, many discussions that there is no clarity on it, how to do it, whether writing only one CO for one unit is sufficient, or it requires more than one COs, or whether the unit number 1 and 2 both could have one CO. Likewise, many confusions with the faculty members are there, but it's not like that. You can define, and I'm sure that after attending this workshop, you will have some clarity on it. So the course outcomes are, started in such a way that they can be actually measured. As the word smart itself, smart means measurable and achievable are very important in the abbreviation of smart. And POs are largely attained through programs specific, that is courses and its outcome only. So defining course outcome is a basic building block, I believe. So moving to that, how to write down that course outcome. So as I told that are the central, that means COs are the central to your course curriculum. They articulate students, faculty, and other stakeholders what student will achieve in each course and how their learning will be measured after completion of this course, right? So it should have basically the four things. That is what action verb number 1, action verb, then subject content, the level of achievement, and condition of performance. So if we talk about the action verb, it leads to have discussion in the different direction. That is what the Bloom's taxonomy and all we'll discuss in the next slide. And subject content, or the concern of what to be learned, that is what a subject content. And the level of achievement, that how bigger or how smaller, and then what in what condition. Some of the time you can relax the condition, that is last fourth number and third number also, but the first two is very, very important, right? So moving for the discussion on the action verb. So action verbs are like this. If it is visible to the screen, you can see that left to right, lower order to higher order, and it is ranging from the describe, name, find, list, relate, write. These are the various words for the recall. For examine, we have the different word. For the apply, we have this many words. Then for the analyzing, this many words. Then evaluate, we have this many words. And for the create, we have again this words. So these are the various words, or you can say action verbs we have, which can be utilized while writing the course outcome. I'm just giving an example. Engineering physics, and again this is not a good example. Everywhere you can see that I have highlighted also in the red color that CO1, CO2, CO3, CO4, 5, everything start from understand, 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 understand. So understand is very important. Why I'm saying it's not a good example? Why I'm saying that this is not a good CO writing? Although other things are very well written, but only problem is what, if you are able to identify, guys, and I'm sorry, very sorry that I could not ask you the question. It's a one-way dialogues, but hope you are connecting with me in the telepathy style, so you also understand that this is good or this is bad, how it defined, right? So only one reason is what we have used only one action verb. So why don't we use another action verb? So maybe this the person who has wrote this CO have not sure about the various action verbs, that how to use and utilize, and likewise. So this was one example. So what level of Bloom's taxonomy you want your student to achieve is another important criteria, another important aspects to think on, to write down the CO. Then if we talk about the course outcome statements, may be broken down into two main component. Is what, as I told you, that initially I have told you that it was basically the 4 parts, but the last 2 parts I'm little bit relaxing, right? The subject content and the action words I'm just taking now. So the various action words I have already shared the previous slide. There we have discussed compile, identify, create. The various the words, action words are demonstrated here, and the learning statement is again subject to subject. So another example, another sample on the screen, you can see that one course titled strength of material, and apply, then analyze, then design, then conduct, then prepare. So these are the various course outcomes. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can say that it's 5 COs. Okay, and then apply law of physics. So law of physics is what? The part of subject content, you can say. Then to compute different types of response in given material. So in given material is what? A kind of condition. So if you just, I'm just going back to the previous one, the condition of performance, the level of achievement, and the subject content and the action verb, right? So I'm just coming again. So here you can see that apply is action verb, law of physics is your subject content, and to compute different types, that means level of achievement, you know. And then in given materials, so given material is a kind of condition, so hope you understand this one. Similarly, the next one could be the design compression elements using engineering principles to resist any given loads. So to resist given any given loads, this could be a kind of condition, right? Using engineering principles could be the third part. Then second part could be what your subject element, compression elements you are using. Then design is an action verb. Likewise, these are the four different criteria to write down the CO. So structure of the course outcome should also be very clear to you. And if the performance indicator competencies of respective program outcomes, and if you are very sure how to write down the course outcome, then it will be really wonderful. So next time if I am coming to your campus for a live workshop, so we'll have this kind of things are, you know, kind of workshop situation. It's not only lecture delivery kind of method where I'll give you some program irrespective of your discipline and specific specialization. I'll give you that this is the syllabus, and now you write down the COs. Now you write down, map it with the POs. So that kind of workshop, one-on-one practice, hands-on sessions will be there in coming time if the time permits and your management asks me. So now moving to the discussion on it, the course outcome. Hope you understand and little bit clarity than the previous stages here with you, right? So this is what the action verb and the learning statements I have already told. And if you forget the four structure, at least remember two words to write down the CO, which is very important. Number one is the action verb. Number two is the learning statement. Number 3 and 4 is very important, but that is a kind of level of achievement and the conditions in which it is to be performed is again sub part, but two parts are very important, right? So for understanding again, the conditions or the action verb, I have already informed that one lady is after me will deliver you live over there and discuss about the Bloom's taxonomy in detail. But I'm just giving a few ideas, few action verbs on it. So the credit goes to Benjamin Bloom, who has first introduced some set of words in 1956 only, and that was renowned as the Bloom's taxonomy. And earlier it was defined with the 6th level of knowledge, ranging from knowledge, comprehension, then application, then analysis, then synthesis, then evaluation. And after some time, in 2001, Mr. Lauren Anderson, a former student of Benjamin Bloom, Anderson and Kurzweil, revised the Bloom's taxonomy to more adaptive to our current age by proposing another taxonomy that will meet curriculum designers, teachers, and students' need better than the Bloom's one. Guru gur reh gaya, chela sakkar ho gaya. Bloom's has been redefined, and it was earlier with the noun, it is now with the verb form. So in the verb form, the lowest form, if we say the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so level 1 is the remember, so this is what the remember, this is what the L1, then understand, it is what L2, it is what L3. Some people are writing K1, K2, K3, K4, K5, K6 also. So it doesn't matter whatever the system you are going to adapt. So level 5 and then level 6 we have. So these are the various levels we have, and this are basically, if we talk about the remember, recognizing and recalling the fact. I'll give an example, a very beautiful example. If you are visiting to the home of your friends, or your relatives, and for example, they have a kid of age somewhere 4 years or 5 years, and the kid has just started visiting their school. So when you are visiting to your relatives or your friends, immediately they call their kid and say, okay, beta, now uncle has came, and now you tell the poems what you have learned. So one poem you learn, na, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So the student or the respective kid has started Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and everything see or he just repeat whatever she remembers. You know. So likewise, many other poems in Hindi, in English, he is just going to recite in front of you, and that your relative or your friend is feeling proud that how beautifully he is able to you know recall that poem for your entertainment and for their proud, right? But if you ask the student or ask the kid, beta, what is twinkle and what is twinkle twinkle and what is the star, he or she may not be able to exactly understand. But again, the generation has changed. Now there are YouTubes available in the mobile phone and in the home theaters also. So students are more able to understand and explain you that what is star and what is twinkle, right? So remember is the level number one. That means students are just reciting something which is not a, which he or she is not able to even understand, right? So that's why remembering is the level number one. Understand, that means when the student or when the kids is trying to explain you that what is a star, okay, star is available in the evening, so that kind of thing, and what is twinkling, if he or she is able to explain you, that means he or she is able to understand also. That means now the respective kid has achieved to the level number 2. That is what understanding the fact means what. Now that kids is trying to apply the knowledge, okay, this is what a star, what I was talking, right? Okay, so this is what the twinkling means, or this is what something. So when he or she started relating the concept, what he has remembered, what he is able to understand with the fact, with the rules, with the concept and idea, then this is what the level number 3 of the knowledge. Similarly, the level number 4 is breaking down the information into the components, into the parts, is analyzing, then evaluating, judging the value of information or ideas. So, level 4, 5, 6 is said to be HOTS, higher level or higher order thinking skill, HOTS, HOTS. So, if we talk about this, is what HOTS. So if we talk about this three, so this three is HOTS, and this three can be directly accessed through your assessment methodologies, what you are having, right? So higher order thinking skills is again very important. How to find out as a very, very important as per the recommendation of NAP. Also, we need to work on it. But I'm just giving an example that how the Bloom's taxonomy helps in writing the COs also, and helping us in evaluations as well. So as I just mentioned you, that normally the first three learning levels, namely remembering, understanding and applying, remembering, understanding and applying, are somewhat the initial levels, which is to be said. Then higher order Bloom's levels are the analysis, and then evaluation, and then creations. And it can be extended through project work, course work, mini and major projects, internship, thesis writing, or many others. And way we'll discuss it later on. So this is what the Bloom's taxonomy. It has those 6 levels. Each level has some skills. Each level skills has some questions. So I'm not going to discuss this thing very well. And as I promised you to share the screen and share the presentation, so I'm just listing it all so that it will be useful for you in some way. So remember, then understand has, if you are writing the questions like describe something or explain something, so this is what a level 2 of the Blooms you are going to ask to the student. Then if you are saying that calculate this thing or predict this thing, apply this formula, solve that, illustrate this one. So this is what the level number 3 of the knowledge. So this first 3 level, as I told you, that are can be calculated or can be done with the initial programs. Then if you talk about the questions like classify, outline, break down, analyze, then this will be the another part where level number 4 is going to achieve. Similarly, level number 5, evaluate and create are there. So I'm not going to discuss line by line, and again the next speaker will discuss on more detail about the Blooms. So now mapping of course outcomes, COs with the POs requires the one Bloom's level, that is what the knowledge, remember, understand, apply, evaluate. Up to K5 we have listed, because K6 is again done through the projects I have already told. And here the program outcomes, if you talk about the applied knowledge, that is engineering knowledge, so could be the level K3, then problem analysis could be the level 4, and likewise. So each CO can be identified to address a subset of POs based on the number of COs and the sessions dedicated to them. It is possible to identify the strength of mapping 1, 2, 3 to POs. So what I'm going to say that initially what happened, if you have some kind of, this kind of boxes you have where you are writing the COs and POs mapping. So here PO1, PO2, likewise you're writing, and here suppose CO1 is there. So you are writing 1, 2, 3, randomly you are writing likewise. So what is the logic of writing 1, 2, 3? So some people say, no, we understand very well. 1 means low, 2 means medium, and 3 means high relevance. It's okay. But whether you have defined the competencies, whether you have defined the performance indicator, then how you are able to identify whether it should be 3 only. And there is another mathematical formula also to find out the relevance, that how many number of sessions, number of sessions dedicated to deliver that particular class COs, and what is the relevance also, we will going to discuss that thing. So mapping requires the deep level of understanding that how to write down the CO, number one, and how to this program outcomes are having the competencies and the performance indicator. So that we need to understand, and that also need to assess through the examinations module to the written exams as well. So initially it looks like that. Suppose we have this program, any program I'm talking, and it has engineering programs. You can see that. So analysis of structures 2 has 2 COs. Maybe it's a 1 credit or 2 credit course, and having the PO1, third, 3 and 3 and 2 and 1s. So ones are not available here. You can see that only 3 and 2s are available. So 3 and 2 means what? Strong level and high or medium level and higher order relevance are there with the respective COs. Now you can say, no, this is wrong. It is not like that. How everything can be right 3. So nobody can comment. As I told you, that COs and POs, outcome-based education, and entire academia is having, lots of flexibility. You have your university, you run by your own style. You have your one course outcome, one particular course, you have sanctioned and are getting approval with the board of studies. You have full authority to deliver in whatever the way you want. So you could not comment that CO1 could not be mapped with the PO1 with the 3 order relevance. Right? How could you comment? Because you have not seen the course structure, because you have not seen the course outcome number 1 and outcome number 2. So we could not go and discuss, and in fact we should not be in that kind of discussion also. So this is again depending upon the faculty to faculty. And one more beautiful thing about the outcome based education I wish to share with you all guys, that outcome based education is giving you kind of freedom. That freedom is what you can enjoy. You can set your own target, you can write down your own COs, and of course with the consultation of your head of the department. Don't misquote me that now new PVC has already told that we need not to discuss with you. I can define my own target, but target can be defined depending upon the subject to subject, and again depending upon your previous experience and all. So what is target, what is threshold, we'll come to that discussion later on. But initially the COPO mapping will look like this. We'll go into the much detail and more detail on it, that how we are achieving this, and coming to that one. So as I'm talking about assessment planning, my task is now started. That assessment planning says that now how to map with the COs and PO, and how to start the assessment methodologies. So again, as I told you that first three COs, first 3 COs ranging from remembering, understanding, and applying can be identified through the continuous examinations and semester end examination and mid-semester examination, whatever written examinations you have. With that we can achieve, right? And for the higher level, which I have named as HOTS, HOTS. So higher order thinking skills can be identified through the course project, mini project, Miser project, and then capstone project, right? And it can be assessed through that one. So how we're going to use this one, and if in the examination we are whether worrying about the blooms or not, whether we are connecting our COs or not. So honorable controller of examination, when I was talking to him yesterday, has told that we have just started the implementation of COs and POs. So it is at the initial level. So it's a good time to, start and rethinking on it and moving on in this. So basically, outcome-based education suggests that there should be, two kinds of assessment method. One is with the direct tool and one is with the indirect tool. So for the direct tool, it suggests that test, assignment, lab, seminar, industrial training, project works, it should be a kind of direct assessment methodology. For indirect tool, there is a process of course end survey, then exit survey, faculty survey, alumni survey, program statistics, and other industrial inputs, employers inputs, and many things, many other surveys can be also included. And the ratio is mostly, indirect direct assessment. Usually we are taking 80% measures, and for the indirect assessment we are taking almost 20% or less than that also we can define, but that depends upon the director IQAC and how, most important thing is that uniformity for the implementation of outcome based education should be there. For policy matters, like how many direct, how we will consider the direct tool, it will be 85% or 80% or 70%, or similarly indirect tool, what will be the weightage, that will be decided by IQC. But for the respective course, you are the owner. You are, as a teacher, you are the owner. You can decide your own threshold, your own target, your own methodologies to achieve that course outcomes, and also how the learning is possible, what are the innovative ways of academics and teaching you are going to implement, so these are the various things are there. So now here you can see that 1 2 this 1 2 3, if you can say these numbers are nothing but your program outcomes, right? And the course assessment tools are there, so how we'll achieve and how we can find out, and which, so this kind of, implemented. And then I'm just quickly moving to help you understand that how the question paper should look like, right? So here you can see that the model question paper for 3 hours examination, maybe it's an end semester examination or mid semester examination, whatever you want to consider. Here, need not to worry about the question text. I'm not going to ask you that you have to answer all this 5 question in next 10 minutes. So this is what question number 1A, where you are talking about explain the steps involved in solving a problem using computer, right? And then marks is given to whatever the marks of that respective question. So I'm not going to much on that why L2 has been chosen, why CO1 has not been chosen again, and likewise. So just try to understand that how we are going to work in coming days for our university examination pattern also. So now column number 1 will house the question number. Column number 2 will house the question text. Column number 3 will house the respective weightage of that particular question. Then column number 4 will define that the question number 1 is related with which CO. Then column number 5 is defining what is the Bloom's level we are going to achieve, and then it will be very clear that if you are using explain, if you are using write, if you are using analyze, if you are doing what, so that's how we are going to write down the Bloom's, and this with the help of Bloom's action verbs with this presentation also, and madam will also come to discuss about the Bloom's, and it is very easily available. You just Google it and Bloom's taxonomy or revise Bloom's taxonomy, you'll find the action verbs also. So these are the various things. The new thing, that means last column, you can see that in-house the performance indicator as well. The performance indicator, if you remember, 1.4.1. Can anybody answer this? I'm sure that nobody can answer because they don't have mic, although they are understanding very well. PO1 means 1 means PO number 1, 4 means competency number 4, and again point 1 means performance indicator number 1. So PO1, right? Then competency 4, then performance indicator 1. So that's a kind of mapping of 1.4.1 means what, and this is all related with the 1.4.1. maybe it's a unit test or whatsoever. So it is defined like this. Just takes a copy from somewhere. So similarly, it's a question number 3 having the CO3, but it is related to L2, and it's related to L4. The question related to some programs and all. So that kind of things are there. So this kind of columns will also coming in coming days, you will find, or you have to find out, or you have to map your question paper with respect to COs, with respect to Bloom's level and performance indicator also, right? So that's a going kind of change. Another example I'm going to put, yeah, yeah, some questions for that, which is left again. So after mapping this, you need to find out the distribution of Bloom's level. That you can see that we have used the Bloom's level here, level 2, 3, 4 only. So 46% is for the level number 3, then level number 2 we have 36%, and other level of 4 was 18%. So this Bloom's level wise distribution. Then course outcome wise marks distribution is again very important. The CO1 has the weightage of 8 marks only. CO2 has a weightage of 20 marks in entire this question paper I'm talking, right? Then again, level 2, level 3 means what? It is again just reminding you, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, right? And CO stand for the respective course outcomes, program outcomes, and PI course, that is performance indicator core, was already discussed you very well in the last slide as well, right? So this is what one example. Moving to the another example, maybe it's blurred from the first bench as well, but I'm just giving you an example that how kind of changes we are going to implement, that is marks, Bloom's level, CO, PO, PI code. Now it's again depending upon the individual society, department advisory committees, and IQAC director, and the honorable vice chancellors of your university, that for the initial level maybe you are not habitual of mapping of questions with the COs. So maybe you will start with the mapping with the Bloom's level first in the level 1. Maybe in the level 2 you can start with a couple of things like Bloom's and CO. Then maybe you can start with the mapping with the POs also. Maybe you will start with the PI code also. But believe me, if you start with the bunch of this, with the package of all this, you will have wonderful clarity on defining and writing, and especially the mapping with the POs and COs very well, right? So this is what a kind of recommendation only, because I am pro vice chancellor, I have recommended in my university. But maybe in your university it will take time, or it has already been implemented. I'm not sure about it, but that's the way how we are mapping the COs and POs with the assessment parameters, right? Now to talk about the CO attainments, right? The assessment should be in alignment with the course outcomes, and question paper should be so set to assess all COs. No COs should be left in the question paper mapping, and the average marks obtained in assessment against items for each CO will indicate the CO attainment. And here one question could be asked: if you are writing so no parking here, that means everybody will park there only. If I'm saying question paper should so set to assess all COs, if somebody can have the question, why one CO cannot be left? That means if it is leaving, if you are leaving in question papers, that means you are not defining the COs very well. You have not written the COs very well. COs means what? Nothing but a kind of target which you are going to achieve with the respect for after teaching and learning process of respect to syllabus. So COs should be well written, COs should be well mapped, and it should be asked in the question papers to for finding out the exact attainment. Then instructors can set target for each CO of his oblique her. That's what a kind of a beauty of this OB and this methodologies. So I was taking that, suppose you have a particular course, so you can define that the target for this CO should be this, or target for this CO should be 70%, or you can have one target for entire course also. So that's a kind of freedom it is with you, with the faculty members, I have to say. The attainment gaps can therefore be identified, and attainment gaps is not clear at this moment. Maybe after some time it will be clear to you. And then instructor can plan to reduce the attainment gaps or enhance the attainment gap. Attainment gaps means suppose you are just since I've used the word, suppose you have attainment level for particular CO1, for example, it should be 2, and suppose 2 is not achieved, right? It is only 1, or it is 0. So in that case, there is a gap. We'll discuss that thing also. The slide is there for that. So that kind of gap needs to be analyzed, and again plan for the coming semester when the next time this course will be delivered. that gap should be removed. And that's a kind of, regular and continuous process for the improvement. For example, mapping of course outcomes for the various examinations patterns. So these are the various, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 various COs you have. This is what a cat 1, cat 2. So you can say any test 1, test 2, test 3, you can understand. So suppose you have 3 sessional tests named with the cat 1, cat 2, cat 3, and end semester examinations you have. And course 1 has the weightage 50% in cat 1, but end semester examination only 18% weightage for CO1 for this. Similarly, the mapping is all with you. You can see that, right? It's all 100 marks paper, and CO1, CO2 will be housed in the test number 1. Cat number 2 will in-house the. So there are, again, if you talk about the assessment methodologies, there are 2 categories. One is formative assessment, one is summative assessment. So which kind of assessment method you are using, that's again a policy matter, right? So that's defined by individual universities and all. So maybe some people those who are using the kind of summative methods, they're not calling that COs again in this end semester examination, or some people are using with some less weightage and all. So maybe it depends upon the situation. So moving to the next one, this process, CO attainment is, I'm just going to take another example where I'm just going to take one petroleum engineering paper, AUB 3100, and semester paper is that, and we'll have question paper title. And as I told you that initially you can have a mapping with the only CO1, mapping with the CO only. You cannot, you can skip Bloom's also, you can skip performance indicator also, but later on you can increase time by time when the decision taken by the departments or the central level decisions, right? So this is what the course code, this is what a maximum marks, or this is what a kind of semester question paper title, then hours, then question titles have been deleted intentionally, then respective CO1, CO2, CO3, 4, whatever the COs are there, and then maximum marks, then respective marks are identified here, right? Similarly, you can see that 12 marks questions, and then 16 marks questions, and total 30 questions are there, and each question are having some marks and some relevance with the respective COs. So in that case, you need to have a separate mapping with the CO table. That is obviously required, but this is what a kind of attainment methodologies we have. And after some time, you need to have a kind of calculation and analysis on it, that how many what are the different percentage of CO wise percentage, that 25% of CO2 is there or something. Hello. So these are the various, ways to how to find out the attainment levels. And then if we talk about when we have this kind of relevance, so each question is mapped with a particular CO. So for the performance of each students, maybe it's a blurred from the previous one. So this all, name of the students, then enrollment number of the student, then question number 1, marks what is his achieved. So suppose question number 1 he got 1 marks, in question number 2 he got 0 marks, again 1 marks, 1 marks. So every questions, question 1 to 15 is here, question 16 to 30 is here. So each questions tabulations is already made here, and that this is again calculated with the softwares and attainments level. And here I'm talking about the target marks, right? So if you are saying that the target marks is suppose 50%, or it should be 60%. So that's freedom is with the respective course teacher, right? 50%, 60%, 70%, it's all depend. So I usually suggest that start with a 50%, see the attainments. And what is attainment? If 70% a student is scoring more than the set target, so suppose 70% of students achieve more than 60%, which is the set target, right? Then level number 3 has been achieved. Level number 2 has been achieved if 60% students achieve the target. Similarly, level number 1, if 50% students achieve. And guys, this 70, 60, 50 is again depending upon you. You can define it as 80, you can define it as a 70, you can define it as a 60, or you can define it as a 90 also, or you can define it as a 100% also. So that depends upon you. That is what kind of freedom with the course attainment or CO attainment likewise. So similarly, the CO attainment is moving for that one also, and it has the so that kind of calculation and the results needs to be shown to the student. So this sheet, you can see that it is for one student, Mr. Jagnes, and this entire detail that how he has able to achieve with the COs, how he has done with the blooms, what is the level of understanding can be accessed through the softwares and automatic control. The faculty member need to just teach, evaluate, and put the marks in one sheet, right? With this these are the various process, and now you can see that time has a very less with the restriction of time, I'm not going to discuss the PO attainments. PO attainments another process which is can be mapped and calculated through that one. So we'll have one another some other time we'll discuss that thing, that how the POs and COs can be calculated and achieved, right? And very important for the OB is what, that continuous improvement should be there. Closing the loop of the course level, program level, and institute level is very, very important. And yeah, all attainment analysis is made to provide continuous improvement through either in course delivery or in the method of essence of course delivery, assessment, and curriculum. Assessment of which is the essence of OB. And during continuous improvement, even what is important is to follow the more one method across the institute, across the policy methods should be same. I have an acknowledgement that various contents I have taken from the various website, known and unknown sources are very informative, and I acknowledge and courtesy to them. With this, thank you very much for inviting me for this session. And I request the host and all the audience sitting in there, kindly note down this URL, tinyurl.com, test your OBE, TEST, test your OBE. It is accessed through your mobile also. You just open your mobile phone, Google Chrome, and Google Chrome. On Chrome only, you just type it, tinyurl.com, test your OB. A wonderful quiz is there. Results will also be shared to you automatically, I believe. And my team has created this quiz. And in that way, I could have your information, your numbers also, so that we can be in touch. Because in the academia or in any other profession, networking is a network, so network is the network. So please be in touch with me in the future, and just take this test also. It is a funny test. So please note down the URL. With this, thank you very much for inviting me, and over to the host now. Hope everybody has noted down this URL.
Thank you very much, sir. And that was indeed a very nice session for us to understand the program outcomes and the course outcomes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining. Now we'll start with the second session. And while the speaker is getting connected through the Zoom, I request all the faculty members to please come in the front and occupy the vacant seats. From there in the back, please. There in the back. And I also request to please maintain decorum, and please also note Can you please check your audio?
We can begin whenever you want to.
Yes, ma'am. We are ready. We'll just introduce you, ma'am. Are you able to share the screen also, ma'am?
Yes.
There in the last rows, please come and occupy the front row seats. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we'll just introduce you, ma'am, then we can proceed ahead. Thank you everyone for joining for the last session and taking up this session. We have the guest speaker, Dr. Pratima Shori. She is currently running an EdTech startup in the career counseling and job fitment space. She is a PhD in management and she has served as independent director on the board of Yes Bank for 2 years and currently serving in advisory capacity with MCCIA and WICCI. She is strong interest, inventory certified professional, emotional intelligence coach and practitioner, NLP practitioner, and life coach, hypnosis practitioner. She has helped to design the competency-based selection process at SCM HRD. She has 18 years of experience in academia as faculty and last 9 years as the director of SCM HRD, a leading business school. Ma'am, it's a privilege to have you here. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you can hear me clearly, then a very good afternoon to you. I understand you've been going through sessions, and I realize that there hasn't been a break between my session and the previous one. So a big thank you to Amity for inviting me for this session on Bloom's taxonomy for assessing learning outcomes. It's a pleasure to be here with so many faculty. Feels great to address all of you. I don't know if there'll be enough time for questions or not, but in case you have queries, please feel free to either post them in the chat here or even write to me directly. Okay, so this has already been mentioned. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of that. What I wanted to just sort of highlight is I also was responsible to initiate and also complete the AACSB accreditation process at SCMHRD. Now, the outcome-based education has been pioneered in the West, okay? And the AACSB has a very, very good module. In fact, one of their standards is essentially about assurance of learning, right? So while the NAC and the NIRF and everybody else is NBA is talking about course outcome and program outcome and outcome-based education, they've been doing this for more than 5-7 decades. All right. So let's just say that we learned from the best, and then we are implementing it here as well. So therefore, I have a clear idea of how it works. My organization already has been mentioned to you, a DPIIT recognized EdTech startup. Over here also, there is an assessment. So even when I designed this particular assessment, you don't begin the assessment with what I want to ask. You begin with what answers am I looking for, and what is it that I want the students to, or the people who will go, the learners to demonstrate. Okay, so that's essentially the same learning. And then about my session, which is rubrics, right? So how do you define those rubrics? So for example, when you're looking at an assessment, what should be some of the key things that are needed to be kept in mind? I'm sure most of this have been gone through, so I'm just going to rush through some of this. I just felt that it was necessary to put all these points in context when you're looking at designing rubrics. So how you design the evaluation is one thing, but components of the evaluation. So I just wanted to set the context, right? Just bear me out. Clear evaluation criteria regarding the performance. Okay. You need to have defined how you will, in the olden days, or, I've seen a lot of faculty do that, which is just sit down and tick, 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 and give a general judgment on, this question is for, answer is for 10 marks or 20 marks. I feel it is okay. So, all right, so 15 marks, right? Somebody else will then complete, if supposing somebody else were to complete the evaluation, for that person, an average performance would probably be 12. For somebody else, an average performance would be 18 out of 20. So these are just so many differing criteria that it is very difficult to judge and assess, right? So you need to have clear evaluation criteria. You should be able to, your assessment and the score that the student gets at the end of it should allow the student to self-reflect and introspect. I look at my marks. It should not be whether I stood first or whatever. In higher education, it doesn't really matter whether I stood first or not. But I think what's important is that since we are largely talking about professional courses, engineering, maybe MBA, maybe, other masters. So here the student needs to understand clearly as to, okay, if I gave this test, what is the feedback that I'm getting? Can I make myself better? Okay. It's not just how, how good the teacher is or whatever, but it's also about whether I can understand for myself. I look at my marks. Does it tell me something? Okay. It's an essential part. It's like the report card. I worked hard, I studied hard, whatever, and then do I know what I'm seeing? Can I take back a lesson from this? Now that's the important piece. Okay. You should be able to, without being there, also be able to give detailed and actionable feedback. When they see the answer to a question, it's not simple regurgitation, or word that I use is verbal diarrhea, right? जो भी आपने सोचा है लाके सब पेपर के ऊपर आपने फैला दिया. That's not the way it should, right? So even when you ask a question, that question needs to have a purpose. You can't simply pick up the 10 topics in a chapter and make that as a question. What is this? What is that? Explain this, explain that. No. Okay. So there should be a possibility of giving detailed feedback, encourage dialogue and interaction. So if you say, no, this is good, this is bad, this is, 5, right? Reinforce positive beliefs and self-esteem. Don't do it just, I'm sure most teachers don't do that. Enable an understanding of gaps between current and desired, and then provide opportunities to reduce them. Please understand, I'm not talking about teaching. I'm not talking about instruction. I'm talking about assessment. Even if you have a well-defined assessment, you will be able to provide opportunities for improvement to the student, okay? Collect information to improve your methods further and use well-defined rubrics and metrics, okay, to be able to do all of that. So you've already, I saw, I was hearing some of the slides that the previous speaker was speaking with you about. So program outcomes and course outcomes need to be finalized before beginning to teach any course, which I'm sure nowadays we do. Based on outcomes and objectives, fix the outcomes and objectives for the evaluation plan. So one of the key things, if you want a good assessment or an evaluation plan, is to have a session plan, right? What's the topic? What are the subtopics, broken down into grainy pieces in terms of if you have a 1 hour session here, 2 hour session, what is it that you're going to cover? 1. And 2, what is there any reading material to go along with it? That would be your session plan. Okay. Uh, Similarly, the student should get this whole set, which is session plan and assessment plan, right? So there are, let's say, 3 objectives to the course, outcomes to the course, COs, okay? Uh, Ideally, your program outcomes may be 4 or 5, whatever, and each of those program outcomes can be achieved by various course outcomes. All right. So the course outcome will align to the program outcome, and therefore you don't need to possibly define the program outcome at the assessment plan level for individual subject. But here also, you need to be able to define that if this is the course outcome, then if I want, let's say, improving understanding or ability to write a financial statement properly. Now, if that is what I want, then in my assessment, I should be able to check whether those outcomes have been achieved or not. And therefore, my assessment will be designed according to that, right? So what is the feedback you're going to give? What is the performance improvement you're expecting? And it also helps to provide transparency, right? So break learning goals into different categories for better understanding and providing equal opportunity and access to all kinds of learners in the class, okay? Please understand there are different types of learners. So some people can write better, some people can maybe express it in the form of a drawing figure, some people can express themselves better by doing. So in your assessment plan, you should be able to engage all kinds of learners. Okay, somebody who can hear, somebody who can write, somebody who can do, somebody who will learn better by speaking. So all these 3, 4 learning types, learning styles, okay, should be taken care of when you are designing the assessment, such that any learner, any particular learner, supposing he or she is just better off writing things down rather than speaking. So they need to speak, yes, of course, right? But if you are looking at level 1, level 2 assessment, if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, understanding, remembering, then in that case, you should be able to, ensure that all of them and all their styles are accounted for. So yes, I'm sure you've heard about formative assessments and summative. So formative is action expectation, right? That is formative assessment. And summative is content expectation, right? So, whether it defines the form, which is they will practice, it'll be practicals, it'll be case studies, role plays, presentations, all of that is formative assessment. Summative is content expectations, right? So do they understand? So it's lower level, okay? Level 1, level 2. That's the kind of difference that exists, right? So you've done Bloom's taxonomy, so I'm not going to really look at that. All that I'm going to say is that, we now refer to the revised Bloom's taxonomy, right? So Professor Anderson was a student of Benjamin Bloom, who along with Krathwohl made some changes. So Krathwohl was involved in the initial, he worked with Benjamin Bloom on the original taxonomy, right? So from noun forms, they all became verb forms. So I hope you realize that, yeah? It can't be a noun, it has to be a verb, action word, and therefore they changed it in that manner, right? Here, the reason why I've put this down, and I'm sure you've looked at the verb words here as well, which is when I remember, I retrieve knowledge, right? When I recognize, so what is the cognitive process at level 1? Okay, now why am I talking about this? Because your rubric has to be designed around this. That's the reason why, okay? You've done this in case anybody needs a slightly more detailed explanation. I will leave this PPT behind with your team and you'll be able to access it, right? But I'm just going to quickly go through each of these. So just for your understanding, a quick recap. Level 1 is remembering, recognizing, identifying, recalling, retrieving, right? So those are the cognitive processes involved, and therefore what is the action expected. Now action expected defines the kind of assessment. The kind of assessment will define the kind of rubric that you will design. Okay. Level 2 is understanding, interpreting, exemplifying, illustrating, classifying, summarizing, inferring, comparing, explaining. All of these things can be done. Okay, level 2. A lot of us have a tendency to, so the pure theory questions will actually be just this level 2. Okay. Level 3 is applying, and in higher education, especially if you're looking at postgraduate students, then the maximum you can do is level 2, but largely level 3, which is applying a procedure to a particular task, executing and carrying out. So I understand the concept when I demonstrate what happens. So saying that, you know, the elaboration likelihood model, explain that using an example. Okay, so that is what would be applying, right? Level 4, analyzing. So differentiating, can I break it up and put it together again? Can I break it up and put it together in a different manner? Much like, you know, you use Lego pieces to construct a car, then remove it to construct a house. Then I again disassemble it and put it together like an aeroplane, maybe. Okay, so that's analyzing, right? Evaluating, of course, make judgments based on defined criteria. You know, can I understand whether this is flowing correctly, not flowing correctly? What are the problems in it? What will work better? What will not work better? So all of those, critiquing and judging, right? Have you been able to take your students to that level? Okay. Level 6, creating. Create, hypothesize, plan, design, construct, essentially put together your thoughts. So that's what is also there in our research papers, right? A good research paper will be able to look at existing literature, look at, therefore come up with a model for an area which is under-researched or untouched, and then go ahead, collect data and analyze it and present a new perspective, okay, add to knowledge. So that's creating, right? When you write a good research paper, that is creating, right? So knowledge dimension, different types of knowledge, but please remember, we should, at higher education, never check for factual knowledge, only move ahead of that, right? So what is a rubric, therefore, right? It's explicit and objective grading criteria, right? If you write 4 points, you'll get so many marks. You write 6 points and you explain at least, you know, coherently explain, you know, the concept, then you will get so many points or you'll get so many marks. So explicit and objective grading criteria, right, helps to clarify expectations, right? You tell the student beforehand, right? You give them the evaluation plan, assessment design in the beginning of the course. You give them the session plan, alongside it, you give them the assessment plan as well. It is not something that you decide to do on the spur of the moment. All surprise quizzes have to be planned well in advance. Yeah, conducting the same kind of assessment again and again will never help you to arrive at a good rubric, right? Gives a clear understanding to students about their performance and how to improve their performance. Conveys that there is a fairness, that if I write this much, you know, this is the minimum marks that I can definitely get and score, and why can I get so many marks? So all of that feedback comes through. Enables other faculty or TAs to design teaching and evaluation plan and also grade assignment. So if you can give a good model answer paper, then you know, that's what it means, which means anybody will analyze and the standard deviation should not be high, right? Necessary, of course, it is having rubrics is almost mandatory for many international national accreditations. Believe me, simply putting in POs and COs will not help unless and until you've got to drill down to the rubric. Then the rubric combines into a good performance level and criteria, and then that combines into a good assessment, and then you'll be able to measure your course outcomes and their attainment, right? So what should a good rubric have? Course outcome or learning outcome. Clearly define the assessment outcome. Then you design the assessment type and ensure that you have a clear criteria of evaluation. Nothing, this will be good, that will be good. No, no, no. If this is good, good means 80% marks. If 80% marks, then good means these 7-8 points with this level of detail will be achieved. Okay. So define the criteria, identify the trait, feature, or dimension to be measured. Do you want to measure analyzing? Do you want to measure remembering? Do you want to measure applying? What is it that you want to measure? Okay. Include a definition and example to clarify the meaning. So for example, in one of our courses, we were looking to test for leadership. Okay. Whether the student has leadership. And then when we tried to connect it to, make a rubric for it, right? The rubric essentially was, first we identified the trait, which is leadership. Then looked at research, which says what is manifestation of leadership, right? And then grade, which is if I have to give application, I should criteria are derived from assignments, checklists, grading sheets, or even colleagues, right? So you can always discuss with your colleagues in terms of what's the best way to handle something. So which means that if you have to define the criteria here, let's say I have an assignment. So I'm going to say, okay, the introduction should be like this, right? Objective setting. How did they set the objective? How did they do the analysis? What was their flow of thought? Right? Did they follow the correct order? You'll have to define that. Okay. Grammar and sentence structure. Right? Was it understandable? Was it something that could be understood? Right? Did it convey their thought clearly? So define the criteria and then define what will be the levels of performance, right? So objectives to describe the level of performance, right? Provide consistent and objective assessment, right? But descriptors help in. So for example, one set can be, so I've put in 3, 4, 5 sets here. You can look at these. You can use these or any others, okay? Excellent, good, fair, and poor, right? So let's say if I have an assessment of for 10 marks, 8 to 10, excellent. Okay, 6 to 8, good. 4 to 6, fair. Below 4, poor. Okay, so you can actually grade them. You can give them marks and then put them in those grades and share either the grades or the marks with them, whatever. If you share the marks, then they should be aware of what the grades are for each question. So what happens is, for each question, they will get this level of, so, master, apprentice, or beginner, if it's something to do with the hand, right? Are you somebody who's exemplary or you're developing, right? So these are some of the things that you can use, which is to define the levels of performance, right? Developing a grading rubric. So, on the slide here, actually there are softwares and packages available, right? Rubric Maker, iRubric, Ruby Star, Rubric Generator. Okay. So these are quite a few. I've put in the links in there, and some of them are free. Some features are available free, so you should be able to use them. Unless, of course, your university can procure them for all of you, that also helps. So it all depends on which one of them is the most suitable for you. So you can look at those as well, right? And you can use a lot of them, you can use as is, right? They also give facility to customize according to your requirements, okay? So first, you select a performance or assignment to be assessed. You will want to design detailed rubrics where something is difficult to grade or where there is a lot of subjectivity, right? It should be related to learning goals or course outcomes, should replicate meaningful tasks found in the real world. Don't ask students to hypothesize, because if they feel it is not real, then you can't really grade them. Imagine and this and that doesn't work. You want a good rubric, then you want the students to think in the way they should exhibit behavior once they reach the market or their job or whatever they are supposed to do in terms of applying, right? So it should be a meaningful task as found in the real world, and should encourage students to problem solve and apply knowledge. Okay, so list the criteria, brainstorm all possible criteria that may be there. So typically, you know, the summer internship reports or the project reports, or if you have a master's by thesis, then in that case, you know, judging the thesis. It's a good idea for the entire faculty group to grade and judge those theses, to sit down together, brainstorm about all the possible criteria, traits, or dimensions, right? Write them all down. And much like you would do factor analysis, right? You will list, and by chunking similar criteria, you can choose to, you know, like looking for themes and looking for either factor analysis, or you can do even content analysis, right? So formative and diagnostic assessments might have more criteria than those for summative performances. So summative is just content, right? So there the rubric will not be very detailed. It doesn't need to be very thought through. But when you're looking at formative assessments, which is practice based, then you need to look at application, conceptual understanding, you know, comprehending, and, you know, all of those. So higher order in the Bloom's taxonomy. So there the rubric is a little more detailed, right? But the list should be manageable and reasonable. Please remember, the rubric cannot be anything more than 4 to 5 points. Each rubric should not have more than 4 or 5 criteria, right? And should be discrete enough to show real difference, right? Which means, one, what is the difference if you give 1 mark, and what will be the difference if you give a 2 marks, right? Just because their handwriting is better or whatever, the 2 cannot travel to 3 unless you've told them that neatness will carry 1 mark, right? If you've not told that to them, then it's a good idea to ensure that you work that into the assessment rubric, right? Now, develop scores, range of performance, right? So what's going to be 1, what's going to be 5, and what's going to be the continuum in between, right? No qualitative scoring, good, bad, ugly. No, 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 right? No good, bad, ugly, right? And write definitive descriptors, very, very clear definitive descriptors. Match the instructional goals and objectives. Every time you will design a rubric, once you've gotten it down right, doesn't mean you leave it alone. Come back to it and check whether, if your course outcomes, program outcomes have changed, then at the grassroots level, your rubric also needs to change, right? Ensure that students understand and can take advantage of the rubric. Can they understand what is happening? Does it give them clear feedback? It's a great idea to take student feedback, please, okay, in this, and really candid feedback is needed, right? So there are different types of rubrics. Okay. Holistic rubric, right, which is good for evaluating overall performance on a task, right? So Arthur and McTighe, this is their paper from which, so from that specific page, they've used this statement, and therefore I thought I'll use this statement here. Therefore, in double quotes, used for simple tasks and performances such as reading fluency, responses to an essay question, getting a quick snapshot of overall quality, judging the impact of a product or performance, right? But here also a holistic rubric will say, okay, at a broad level, is the conceptual clarity good, right? So you can have from excellent to poor, and when you're doing excellent to poor scoring within that rubric, so how will you divide those 5 marks or 10 marks for that assessment? So the rubric will be for those many marks. Maximum marks will be excellent, will be maximum marks on that question, right? So that is one way to do it, right? Analytical, each criteria is assessed separately using different descriptive ratings, right? Takes more time, but provides a detailed feedback. So if you want to do a project report, ideally you will have one holistic and a couple of analytical rubrics in that, right? Judging complex performances involving several significant criteria, providing more specific information or feedback to students, right? Generic. So, you know, for example, in graduate outcomes, okay, when you look at graduate outcomes, you want each student passing out of Amity University to display the following criteria or display the following competencies. Everybody that comes out of Amity will be, you know, so-and-so kind of leader and social and this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now that you break that down into criteria, right? And those criteria, graduate outcomes, when you're trying to judge, they will of course become part of your program outcomes and will therefore show up in course outcomes, right? So when you're looking at social responsibility, say, or maybe leadership behavior of a certain type, then that rubric for leadership gets fixed. And the same thing can be used across the board in different subjects, right? In, you know, since I'm a management professional, I can clearly say, you know, in marketing, show leadership in marketing, show leadership in HR, show leadership in, you know, speaking with people. So 3-4 places, the same leadership rubric will get attached wherever you are measured is part of your assessment plan, wherever you are measuring leadership in different subjects, right? There you will use this same rubric. Okay, so that's a generic rubric which is used across the board, right? To show that, let's say if you're saying there are 5 characteristics that define a leader according to you. So if all 5 are expressed, you will give 5 marks. If 4 are expressed, then you, or, you know, 4 to 5 are expressed, you'll give 5 marks. If you, if 2, 3 are expressed, then you'll give 3 marks or whatever. Okay. So you define it like that and you hand it off. So it could be a written assessment. It could be a role play. It could be a case presentation. It could also be interaction with the student. So the mentor-mentee model is really big. You know, if you look at the accreditations, and there the mentor can grade the students, let's say, on leadership. So that's a generic rubric and which is handed off to everybody. So you stabilize the rubric and then you give it to everybody. Everybody uses it as is. Okay. For unique task, right? You know, it's easier and faster to get consistent scoring in large scale, high stakes contexts such as state level accountability assessments, right? So, you know, doing a certain action in a certain way, following a certain set process, doing a certain set number of things. Now all work according to that, right? So this is an example of what a rubric can be like. Okay, so let's say you are assessing them on a case presentation. Okay, now in that presentation you are looking at whether they are going to do engagement, right, their perspectives, right, and their use of examples. So you're going to grade them 12 points, 20 points, 23 points. Now, even in this, in 12 points, okay, you will very clearly mention if you are exceptional, will you get all 12, right? If you're satisfactory, will you get 10 or 8? If you're underdeveloped, will you get 6? If you're limited, will you get 4 or 5 or whatever? So you'll have to sort of give how many marks in each of these, right? So that's what has been done. So if you are exceptional, 12 points, right? If you are satisfactory, 8 points. If you're underdeveloped, 4 points. If you're limited, it is 2 points, right? So you can give an idea of how many marks you'll give for each. Perspectives considers multiple perspectives when appropriate, demonstrates awareness of limitations of author's own perspective. New insights are offered, but they are not fully developed or not significantly put into context. No new insights are presented, and no consideration of alternative perspectives at all. So can they look at different points of view? Can they? So if you notice now, the exceptional person is higher up in the Bloom's taxonomy, right? So at satisfactory level, you are looking at applying, and at exceptional, you are looking at beyond that, critiquing, judging. Yeah, you are at that level, right? So when you're looking at Bloom's taxonomy, the higher up you go, the more graded and the more marks you will give, because that person is able to think up to that level. What's very crucial to understand in all of this is when you design the assessment, they should be able to think beyond. It should not be a simple yes, no answer. Can this happen? Can this not happen? Why? Why not? It should be a layered perspective. Only when it is a layered high-end perspective, when you ask a question from that end, right, then the best answer will be exceptional, which is what you're expecting. What are you expecting? You should know what you are expecting, right? Use of examples, 23 points. Coherently integrates examples with explanations or analysis. Explanations and analysis are mostly based on examples or other evidence, right? So exceptional is at that level, okay? Who's analyzing and creating a different perspective, right? Whereas satisfactory is only somebody who's able to analyze and look at different perspectives and understand that there are different perspectives, right? Underdeveloped is somebody who doesn't understand, so lower down, no additional examples, rehashes previous comments, which means this person has not moved beyond remembering and understanding. That's it. So their perspective is limited, right? This is not just a feedback. Please remember, this is not just a feedback to the students. It's also a feedback to the faculty in terms of whether you were able to give them that perspective or not. So depending on the level of the class, if the level of evolution is very high, they will probably pick up the higher order concepts or themselves arrive at those, right? As is medium or a little below, then you have to pitch your own teaching accordingly, such that you can show them the higher order themes in the particular subject, if you're looking at Bloom's taxonomy. So this is what I want to leave you with. These are some of the references that I've used. Okay, and I may be able to take about a couple of queries if there are any, unless it is all clear. Or is it all clear? Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer.
any questions, we can pass
I can't hear you.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, very faintly.
If there is any question, we can pass on the mic to you.
There are no questions. I was so good. That everybody understood everything really well. I'll send a PDF of my PPT to Sandeep.
We'll share it across to all the faculty members.
Sorry?
We'll share it across to all the faculty members.
Yes, please. Yes, please. You must. You must.
Ma'am, for joining.
Yeah, thanks. It's a long process, but well begun is half done.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.